Go ahead.
You got everything. Introduce Cliff. Cliff is the founder and CEO of Speechify. He has dyslexia and ADHD. When he was young and when he was in college, he couldn't keep up with his classes, so he built Speechify to help basically get his readings automated. He could listen to them while he was working out or traveling from class to class. Today, it's used by over 25 million users, and it's read out over 200 billion words, which is more time reading than all of the hours between 0 DC and today, which I think is pretty monumental. Many people have compared this guy to the next Steve Jobs.
So we're super lucky to
exaggeration. Have him here today. He's also humble, but very confident, which is good. But today he's going to explain how he decides what to work on, how to hire, how to build products if you don't know CS, how to get initial users, how to scale to tens of millions of users, how to use AI, and the 5 pillars that allow him and his team to maximize their happiness. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Cliff. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
And one thing to note, Sam this morning was named to Forbes 30 Under 30, so let's give a big round of applause. Yeah. I want to raise the energy in the room for 1 second. I'm glad you guys are here. All right, so today I have 5 things I want to cover with you guys, and my goal is that at some point in your life, the information you learn here will radically alter the trajectory of your happiness and what happens in your life. So the first thing I'm going to cover, but I'm actually going to cover it at the end, is how I make decisions and how you can set your goals. The second thing is give you the confidence to believe that anything you want to make, you can. And anything you want to learn, you can. And literally nothing is standing in your way to doing that, and just nothing can stop you from doing that. Third is to teach you how to scale products to tens of millions of users. Fourth, I'm going to explain AI from first principles. And then 5, I'm going to teach you the pillars that I use and the rest of my team use to be very happy and fulfilled, what the Greeks called eudaimonia, still while working, many, many hours a week. Okay, and the way I'm going to do all that is I'm just going to share a couple of personal stories that have shaped my view of the world along the way. Does that sound good? Yeah. Sweet, let's go. So I grew up similar distance to Turkey. I grew up in a place called Israel, in a town called Ra'anana, about 20 minutes north of Tel Aviv. And I have 4 younger siblings who are very, very smart. And when I was a kid, I couldn't figure out how to read. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. So my teachers thought I was slow. My parents thought I was lazy. I thought I was awesome. I just needed to prove it to people. And eventually my dad decided, look, there's no way this kid is this level of lazy. Let me try reading books to him. And everybody else got to read Harry Potter, and I didn't. So I asked if he could read Harry Potter, and he did. And my dad has a very deep voice, and he's a lawyer. And he had a cassette tape. And every day he would sit with me in my bed, and he would read Harry Potter. And then he'd record himself. And when my dad couldn't make it home in time, I would listen to this recording. When I moved to the US when I was 13, I didn't speak English. And the way I learned how to speak English is I listened to Harry Potter audiobooks 22 times in a row. And today I still have the first chapter of Harry Potter memorized. And it completely changed my life. My first history class in the United States, we had a really hard teacher. His name was Mr. Bloom. And you had to write a chapter outline every single day. He treated you like you were in high school. But I couldn't read the chapter outline. I couldn't spell in English. I couldn't touch type in English, let alone write something coherent. So I was really stressed about this. And what I did is I found that there was an audiobook for the textbook online. And I started listening to that. And I went to the teacher and I said, hey, Mr. Bloom, would it be okay with you? I had an Israeli accent. Would it be okay with you if instead of writing a chapter outline, I would come and 15 minutes before school give you a summary? And he was like, yeah, that's fine. And we had a summer reading book for high school called Marley and Me. Great book. I could not read Marley and Me. My mom had to read it to me. Fast forward 4 years, I finished high school, and I was going to go to a school not far away from here, Brown University, and I still couldn't finish my summer reading books. We had a book called Sons of Providence, and I spent the entire summer trying to finish this book, and I did not succeed. And eventually I sat with my mom in her bed, and she read Sons of Providence to me. And But she had to work, she couldn't do the whole thing, and I still had about a third of this book left. And I did the only thing that I could, which is I built a text-to-speech system for my computer that would read out the book out to me into my iPhone, and I listened to that on the plane, and it worked. And I showed up, 18 years old, having read my summer reading book. Turns out almost nobody else read their summer reading book. But for me, that was really important. And in college, I realized that most of my textbooks did not have an audiobook, so I ended up building this hack that would let my computer read stuff out, and then I built an iPhone app that could scan physical documents, and then I built a natural language processing thing for PDFs, and then that ended up becoming relatively popular. I'm going to talk about that later. First, I'm going to talk about 18-year-old Cliff, and the big challenge that I had is there was a huge distance between who I thought I could be and who I perceived myself to be at the time. And my biggest desire in life was to close this distance. And the way that I went about that is there's maybe 4 fundamental things that I did. The first one is I listened to audiobooks. So when I was a kid, my dad drilled it into my head that reading is important. And he drilled it into my head probably to a degree that is 100x more than your parents drilled it into you guys, because I kept refusing to read. And so I bought into this. I really believed my dad that reading was extremely important. And when I was a kid, I wanted to be Prime Minister of Israel, a billionaire, and a pop star all at the same time. And I was like, at least 2 of these things I can't be if I don't know how to read. And I couldn't figure it out. And so I brute forced my way through. I would go to the public library every single day, and I would try to read, and I would not succeed. And I would fall asleep in the book, and every day the librarian would wake me up. And when that didn't work, I just had my parents, and I remember I tricked my friends in high school to come study with me, which really meant them reading out the chapter because I couldn't do it myself. And then I would do all the homework and let them use my answers. But then I found audiobooks, and I started listening to Narnia, and then Game of Thrones, and Percy Jackson, and then Atlas Shrugged. And then I was I might as well read the Bible, and Aristotle and Nietzsche and all these other books. And it completely changed my worldview. I listen to 2 audiobooks a week, and I've done that every year for the last 18 years. And the way that I do that is when I first started speaking English, I would listen at 0.75x speed. And then I started listening at 1x. So then I listened at 1.5. And then I listened to 2x. And then I'd listen at 2.5. And then I listened to 3x. And I taught myself to listen fast. And this is the most amazing skill that I could wish upon anyone. And so actually, quick survey of the room. Who listens to podcasts or YouTube at 1.5x speed? Still, there's a majority of the room. Who listens sometimes at 2x speed? Majority of the room. Who listens to lecture capture at 2x speed? Whoever doesn't have your hand up, what are you doing?
I wish I could listen to this at 2x. No.
Soon you will be. I work so hard to not speak fast when I'm talking to people, because there's a variety of people. And so I just learned how to listen fast. And here's the thing, if you listen to an audiobook, you're not tethered to your desk. You can walk around, you can ride your longboards, you can do backflips, you can do whatever you want and still listen to the text. So I listened to everything: theology, philosophy, religion, fantasy audiobooks. The next thing that I did is I developed a crazy bias towards action. To a degree that is unusual. So I don't drink alcohol, I don't smoke weed, I don't smoke cigarettes, and I never have. I've never been drunk in my life. Not for a religious reason, just because before college, I perceived that this was something that was relatively negative and there was going to be a lot of pressure to do it. So I was like, cool, I'm going to develop a bunch of comfort challenge. We don't need this. I'm going to develop a bunch of comfort challenges. And I would go to a Starbucks, and I would lie down on the ground for 15 seconds. I just give myself a timeout, just to soak in the how much this should feel bad. And I just developed the ability to not have social inhibitions. And then I try to negotiate a 15% discount for my coffee. And I go to the mall and I talk to everybody. And so I developed the ability. Sometimes people talk about alcohol as if it's liquid courage. I just wanted to have courage. So I developed it. And it's something that you can develop. So then I started doing hackathons, even though I'm dyslexic, so I misspell everything. And the first 3, 4, 5 hackathons I did not know how to code. And so I would go and I would try, and I wasn't very good. And I would just practice and practice and practice. And I started developing a lot of physical products. I built this like 3D printed skateboard brake, and then I built a mini Faraday cage that blocks cell phone radiation from infecting reproductive organs, and then I built like a medical product. And I just tried things. And Brown is great because it has an open curriculum. So I took classes in 16 different departments. I ended up studying the renewable energy engineering major at Brown. But I decided that I had to learn how to code, because if I didn't, I would not be able to be the person that I perceived myself to be. And so in the same way that reading was hard, coding was hard, really hard. But that didn't matter, because I needed it to be the person that I wanted to be. And so sometimes people think about, do you go and double down on your strengths, or do you cover your weaknesses? And I think it's important to do both. So I, because I'm dyslexic, lean on the fact that I'm a good listener. Right? So I leaned into being a good listener. And I leaned into being a good speaker. I was like the state champion in speech and debate in high school. And yet, when Brown had a theater class for how to do public speaking, I took that class. Because I was like, I probably will get 1% better in speaking. But that will put me that much higher here, and it matters to fix that. But at the same time, I took like literature and writing courses, because I was not very good at spelling and grammar and writing. And I took computer science courses. And in my senior year, I took a class called software engineering. And about a third of the class drops this class every single year. It's the hardest computer science class at Brown. I was not a computer science major. I was missing some prerequisites for the class. And I had 2 friends who dropped it. And I knew that I did not want to drop it. The person that I wanted to be was not the type of person who drops this type of class. And I decided that I needed to come into this as though I was Tiger Woods, like I'm a golfer. And if you know, in golfing, it's mainly a mental game. And so I bought a little notebook, and every morning I would write, I'm good at computer science. I'm good at computer science. I'm good at computer science. And before I went to sleep every day, I would write, I'm good at computer science. I'm good at computer science. I'm good at computer science. And I would also write 3 things that I was grateful for. Maybe it was my parents, maybe it was the sun outside, but often I would say, I'm grateful to be in this class. And I basically brainwashed myself to believe that I could be good at computer science. And I even sought out an internship that summer where I could teach computer science, because I actually got good at debugging by that point. And other instructors were better than me, but I was really good at debugging code. Like if someone had like a mistake, I could find it, because I had a lot of experience finding mistakes in code. So it's 2023. If you want to build a company, or if you want to create value in the world, I highly recommend learning how to code. And this applies not just to coding. Learn how to use Figma. Learn how to use SQL. Take the things that you perceive, wow, this is a great skill that these other people have. You can have it too. Just work towards it. And it doesn't matter if you're 6 years old or you're 60 years old. It doesn't matter your religion, your gender, your age. It doesn't matter. You can do it. You can just do it. You can learn anything off of YouTube. Like the main way I learn how to code is videos on the internet, looking at other people doing something, and then I do it myself. And then I'd look at someone else doing it, and then I do it myself. So you can do it. If I can do it without being able to spell, you definitely can do it. OK. So that's on learning how to code, how to design, how to do all these things. The next thing that I did is I made as many friends as I could. So we had a dining hall at Brown. And at the beginning of every semester, people are very open to meeting other people. So what I would do is I would have 3 dinners every night, and I would sit at different tables of people I didn't know. I would grab a plate. I'd be like, hey, what's your name?
Renata?
Renata, I'm Cliff. Nice to meet you.
Nice to
Is somebody sitting here?
No.
Can I join you?
Sure.
Awesome. And there'd be like 6 other people in this table. And then I'd like get to know everybody. And then I'd grab another plate, same dinner, and I'd sit with another group of 7 people that I didn't know. And then I'd grab a cup of tea, and then I'd sit with another group of people that I didn't know. Because my thesis was that the most valuable thing about university is not the classes, it's not the name of the school, it's the people who fly from Turkey to go study there. So I want to meet those people, because I could go travel all around the world, or I could just like, they already picked all the best people, just like go and make friends with them. So my friend group in college was amazing. And then many of those people ended up joining Speechify later on. So even today, right, the reason why I take time to go and give talks like this is like, I like meeting everybody here. And you guys can, you know, make me a more interesting person, enrich my life, teach me something I didn't know before. Philip works for a friend of mine's company, Nima, Atlas. Philip ended up staying at my house like 2 years ago, randomly. And so, I got to like reconnect with Philip. How great. And so make yourself open to making new friendships with people. And so here's like a really good hack for it. People typically bond either over vulnerability or over ambition. And if you can drive the conversation in that direction, that works really, really well. one thing I realized recently, so women obviously are better at bonding over vulnerability because they actually have like evolved emotions. And if you ever wondered why men have a lot of friend groups that occur over sports, it's because sports is a way to have ambition for your team without actually like, working hard on like having ambition for something that you're like building yourself, and it does not require like emotional intelligence. So like, thing I realized recently. But that's like still a great way of making friends, right? Is sports teams or going to the gym. And so the trick is like if you meet someone, get their phone number, and be like, hey, by the way, I need to go to the gym later today. Shoot me a message on Instagram if you're interested in doing a workout at like 5 p.m. today, right? Like, boom, I'll probably get a couple of messages and then I'll have better friends. Amazing. So exposing myself to all these people completely changed my worldview. It made me understand the types of people that I had not met up until that point in my life. And so I listen to about 100 books a year, but even better than books is people. People are like the cutting edge of whatever their research that they're doing. And this is especially why it's fun to talk to people in like a grad program in a university, is that you can learn things that a book can't teach you. I remember I had a master's class in renewable energy engineering, on photovoltaics engineering. And I was like, wow, I can't Wikipedia the topics in this class. And like there's one TA and one professor, but like I don't want to come to them with the questions right before the exam. So I would message professors at MIT and Stanford to get the answers to the questions because I couldn't Wikipedia it. Like that's the type of class that I want to take, and so that's the type of conversations I want to have with people. So people are that like amazing frontier. And then the last thing for making decisions is writing. So really good writing is the best form of thinking. And so I built about 36 products when I was in college, and I ended up writing this 30-page paper about my worldviews around the time I graduated, because I didn't know what I wanted to work on. And I distilled it down using philosophy. So there's a philosopher, Malthus, I really like. And he talks about utilitarianism. And I wanted to create as much value in the world as possible. To put it in economic terms, I wanted to shift the PPF curve to the right. There's another guy, Emerson, that has an essay called On Wealth. And he talks about this idea of Thomas Savery, who invented the steam engine. And it used to be just like a bunch of scrap metal in someone's garage. And then he applied thought to matter, rearranged atoms in a certain way, and boom, you have something that can like pump water out of wells. It can create electricity. It can power a steam engine. And then you can multiply that times 1,000, times 1,000,000. Like the fundamental improvement of the quality of life of people because this one guy made an invention and then productized it is unbelievable. It's the closest thing we have to magic, is being able to create value. That's the thing that I wanted to do. But I wanted it to create value for people, not just like make shiny objects. And I realized that there is diminishing marginal returns to value that you give people. So if you go and try to solve a problem for like some like wealthy banker in New York, you can't really change the quality of their life. But if you go to like a slum in India or a township in South Africa, you could probably have a lot of impact. So that's what I wanted to do. But I really liked living in the United States. I didn't want to live outside the United States. And I was like, what is a group of people who are underserved, ideally who I understand their problem, that no matter how much money they have, their problem is not solved? And I realized there's a very clear group, which is people like me who have dyslexia and ADHD. Because if you're hard of sight, you can put on glasses. If you're in a wheelchair, you can be on a wheelchair. But if you're dyslexic, the alternative is just to suffer. Like, you're gonna read slowly. You're gonna have bad spelling. You're gonna not really retain all the information, because when you read, 3% of your brain is comprehending, and 97% is decoding and like actually doing work. And no matter if you have dyslexia or not, reading is a highly intensive computational behavior. And it is something that we invented about 5,000 years ago. Humans have been around for 200 million years. We're great at listening. Reading's a hack, right? It's just you see a bunch of characters and you can decode them. The printing press was invented in like not too long ago, right? 100, 200 years ago. So all of you can listen at 2x speed. It's just a matter of practice. There's a great story about Roger Bannister, who ran the 4-minute mile. He's the first person ever to do it. People thought it was impossible. He was a medical student. And so what he did is he broke it down into like little chunks, and he'd run, 100 meters at that pace, and then 200 meters at that pace, and eventually he got it. He would train during the lunches from his classes. And the next year, multiple other people did it. So it's just getting rid of this limiting belief that you can't listen really fast. And so if you download Speechify, there's an automatic speed ramping algorithm that coaches you how to listen faster. So just like develop that skill. I'm 29. I still practice touch typing all the time because I type at 75 words per minute, which is pretty good. but my brother types at 140 words per minute, and I want to be able to do that because good writing is good thinking, but there's friction right now for me to write. I want to remove that friction. And so the less friction there is for me doing good work, the more likely I am to end up doing good work. Okay, so that's a little bit about how to make decisions. I highly recommend writing a big paper about your worldviews. How to build products. We basically covered that topic. Scaling people. Okay, great. So I'm going to talk about how to scale products, and I want to talk about how to scale teams. How to scale products. Obviously, you guys heard the topic of product market fit, I imagine. If you haven't, read the book, The Lean Startup. Incredible. It's like the Bible for Silicon Valley. But the trick is you want to make something people want, like solve a real problem for people. Don't just build a vitamin, build an Advil, something people really actually need. The reason why Speechify was successful, even though when I started building it, I was the sole developer, so you know that there were a lot of problems with the product, is there was no other alternative. The alternative was suffering for a very clear cohort of people. 17% of the world has dyslexia. 32% of people self-diagnose as having ADHD, and if you use TikTok, you probably have ADHD now. And for those people who are like me, there is no alternative. So even though the product had bugs, the response was not to delete the app. It was to complain to me on customer success about why my app was breaking. And so the first thing that I did is I built the product, and I made a bunch of YouTube videos about it, and I optimized some keywords, and I started getting a little bit of traffic. The problem there, though, is that I did not have a direct relationship with the user. And so I could not understand what was wrong with the product. And it's amazing to me when you build something, and you're sure they're going to click on the button. And then you give the phone to someone with an app that you built, and somehow they don't click on, they find everything to do that is not the thing that you intended. And no matter how, so there's a couple of things I realized, no matter how smart you are, you're not going to solve them. So one of them is user experience design. No matter how smart you are not fallible. Users will use it differently than how you intend. The only way to figure it out is to give them the product, do user testing with 100 people, see what they do wrong, and then fix it. Because it's obviously not their fault, it's your fault. So what I ended up doing is I went to a bunch of conferences for people with learning differences, and I had no money at the time. So I somehow convinced United to give me a discount on the phone. I booked an Airbnb next to wherever these conferences would occur. I would not buy a ticket. I would message the board to try and get one, and often they would not give me one. And I would just sneak into the conference. And I would sit in the audience, and when the keynote speaker would finish speaking, I would jump on stage. Security wouldn't kick me out. I would plug in my computer, and I'd say, "Hi, my name is Cliff. I have dyslexia. I want to show you guys this thing that I built." And people would listen. And I would do this, and then 12 school heads would come up and give me their cards. And I would email them a really good email, and they would invite me to go to their school to teach their kids how to use Speechify. So I'd fly around the country and teach kids how to use Speechify. And I would give, a talk. But then I would be like, hey, I'm going to hang around. And I would sit in every single class in the back of the class, and I would see how people use Speechify. And if they have a bug, I would fix the bug. I would sit in the back of the class and code. If it was unclear how to use something, I would fix it. And oh my God, I got good at making Speechify work on Chromebooks and old versions of Macs, all these edge cases you would never think about. The next thing that I did is I wrote a book publicly online about my experience with dyslexia. I'd write 500 words a day. At the time, it was on Facebook. But now you can do this on LinkedIn or X or wherever you want. And I started having pieces that I would write that would get 1,900 shares each. What people didn't know is that was my 38th iteration of that version of post. I would just post it at different Facebook groups, and I would see which one converted the best based on what the intro was, et cetera. And then we started to have some users. People were using it consistently, and I was like, great. Well, the category that I'm in is education, but really I'm a consumer subscription product. So who are other great consumer subscription products? By the way, what's cool here is I niched down to find the types of people that I wanted to admire and learn from. And so I went on Sensor Tower, and I found a list of the top 100 best performing consumer subscription apps on the App Store in terms of revenue. And I made a Google Sheet, and I emailed every CEO, every head of growth, every CMO. I had LinkedIn message them, I had Instagram message them, and I'd get them to hop on a Zoom call with me. I had a 40% response rate. And if you hop on the Zoom call, I'd make friends, and then I'd be like, oh, by the way, I'm going to be where you are. Let's meet up. So the reason I'm in Boston is I had a meeting with an investor. And we had a Zoom call. I thought they were good. I wanted to meet them. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to be in Boston. I had no reason to be in Boston. And this talk came together because I was going to be in Boston. I was like, okay, fine. I might as well give a talk while I'm in Boston. And so I'd fly to wherever they are. And I would sit in the office and I would see how they bought ads. And I became really good at buying ads on Instagram and Facebook. And then I made a list of the best creators, like Mr. Beast, Ali Abdaal, Yes Theory, Iraq. And I would make friends with them. And I'd sleep over in their houses for like 2-3 weeks at a time, and I'd see how they made content. And then I got really good at making ads. And then I got like really good at SEO. And so the trick is, learn everything you can from books. Learn everything you can from the internet. And then after that, people are the final frontier. Because especially when it comes to scaling products, it's all an arbitrage game of, can you figure out how to get attention more cheaply than other people? How can you build a funnel that converts really well, and then the user actually uses your product? But then here's the most important part. I did something that's super unconventional. The bottom 20% of the app was a gigantic button that said, message us/help. And if you messaged us, you didn't go to some like random person. You went to my iMessage. It didn't open like a custom. It opened iMessage with my phone number with a prompt. And my iMessage stopped working because I was getting tens of thousands of messages a week at this point. And I literally had to like find a friend at Apple who was an engineer and have them erase all of my chat history so that iMessage would work for me again. And I did this for like 2 years. And I would add other people from the team. And so we would respond to people, and they'd be like, how are you responding to them? It's 3 in the morning. Because like, I just wanted to build the best product. Okay, so that's how you scale products. Now, how do you scale teams? So we have 4 core principles of Speechify. Extreme product quality, obviously. Speed. Same bias towards action, bias like ship to production. You do not get credit for building something that is not in production in front of users. Frugality, and leading with love. So of these, the most important is leading with love. So what is leading with love? I've had a bunch of conversations with people about this maybe over the last year, but this has been a principle we've had at Speechify for about 4.5 years. Last weekend, I had a long chat with Walter Isaacson, who was the biographer for Steve Jobs, but also spent the last 3 years with Elon Musk. He's about to publish a biography about Musk. And so we talked a lot about, why are some of these leaders jerks, right? And so, I like Steve Jobs as like a leader because I can admire people very easily and I can hold separate the things about them that are great and the things about them that are not. But like, I do not admire him as a person, and I would never emulate his leadership style myself. Some people might, not my cup of tea. So what does leading with love mean? So 1, I have 4 younger siblings, and I love them more than anything else in the world. I treat the people at Speechify the same way that I would treat my siblings. There's a word in Tibetan called mudita, which is the feeling of well-being you get from the thriving of others. It's the opposite of the German Schadenfreude. I feel mudita for people, and I've coached myself to think in that way always. So a great example is Simon. So at a certain point, I was working on Speechify. I was a student at Brown. I built the iPhone app. I was working on the Mac app. And this guy messaged me from Bulgaria. And he found me because I posted on a bunch of Facebook groups. And I was like, I posted on like Hackathon Hackers Europe. And I posted like a challenge for what I wanted to do. And he helped me with it, and it was great. And then like he messaged me again, and I was like, great. Well, you don't know iOS, so you can't help here, but like you know a little bit of web. Maybe you can like work on like a different version of our website. Here's a sketch of what I want done. I go to sleep. I wake up in the morning. It's done. And I was like, wow, that's very good. And he's like, how else can I help? I was like, well, you don't know iOS, but like I'm trying to hire more iOS engineers. So we hopped on a Skype call. This is before Zoom. And I showed him how I was looking through LinkedIn profiles and Medium profiles and like tutorials people made about iOS. And I was filling the school sheets 1 to 100. We filled maybe the first 10. I go to sleep. I wake up in the morning. This man made a new email address, cliffweitzman1@gmail.com, found 90 more people and emailed all of them. And I was like, you're a beast. And so he kept doing things like this. So eventually, I got him a visa. I got him an apartment. I moved him out to San Francisco. Eventually, he got a green card. Which I got a green card when I was 21. It's a really big deal. And like this all happened when he was like 20 years old. And so now he's the COO at Speechify. And the way that we hire typically is we look for people who take a huge bias towards action, they take initiative, and we'll just give people opportunity to create value. And I'm just like, I'm walking through life constantly giving people opportunity to create value. Great example. I hit up Sam, and I was like, hey, we don't have a videographer. I'm just going to shoot it on my phone. But why don't you in the bottom write, we've had a request for a videographer. If you have a DSLR, bring it. Multiple people showed up with a DSLR. Next time I'm in Boston, I'm going to hire them to work for me. And like, we make ads all the time at Speechify. Great. Like, this is great. And so constantly, I'm like finding opportunities to do this. And then the leadership principle that I use all the time is great leadership is seeing the greatness in others before they see it in themselves. And if you can develop that ability to both spot talent, and you know how little Cliff wanted to be here, and he was here? If you become a great person, the thing that you will do is you'll come to little Cliff, and you will see this already. And you'll see, here's the path of how he can become this, and I'm going to bet that he's going to become this, and I'm going to invest time and effort in teaching him and coaching him, and figure out how he can help me in my mission so that he can become that person. And so we do this all the time. Great example. There's a guy, his name is Jan. He was 16, 17. He lived in Uruguay. Uruguay is like even further than Turkey. It's like under Brazil, basically Antarctica. And this guy sent me a bunch of emails, a bunch of Instagram messages, and like I didn't respond because I was busy with stuff. He started, like, he was so incensed. He messaged like the rest of the team. He messaged my brother, like, okay, fine, I'll respond to you. And the reason I responded is he sent me a 10-page PDF on how to do keyword optimization for Speechify, and he had a TikTok account with 175,000 followers. And I was like, oh, this guy knows how to do something that is useful. And he also sent me like another 10-page PDF about, you know, how to optimize the product, and you wrote like Medium posts about it. And I was like, okay, fine. So I get in a call with him. Turns out he's really good at TikTok ads. And I was like, great. Here's an Upwork account. I put my credit card on it. I want you to go and use it to hire TikTokers and hire like VAs to help you build a team of 100 TikTokers who are going to make content for ads for us. And he ran this team, and he ended up having 27 people reporting it to him at like 17 years old. And then I booked him a flight, moved him out to LA and then Miami. And like he now like works on growth at Speechify, and he's like 18. And so like there's so many examples like this at Speechify, unlimited. And I think that the key is, and you know, we have a lot of situations where someone will join the team. I'd be like, okay, you know, I'm going to work with them, but I think of them as now they are my teammate. They're not just my employee; they're my teammates. So that's like being my sibling. And so often there'll be situations where like I'll sit with someone like, okay, well, great, Speechify, whatever. What are your top 10 goals in life? And we'll sit down and they'll write. We'll sit and we'll write their goals. And sometimes it'll be like make more friends, get a girlfriend, like you know, get jacked, whatever it might be. Cool. I do the macros, or I used to do the macros for every person who joins Speechify, like teach them nutrition. And I'd like literally give them a workout plan. And to this day, I check in on people. I'm like, hey, send me a screenshot of your macros. I know you said that you're not following it. Boom. Like hold people accountable. There was one like case where someone like really wanted to have more friends. And I was like, great, well, what type of friends do you want? Whatever, cool. Can you give me a Google sheet of 50 people that you find on the internet that you would like to be friends with? So he like found people, one like Forbes 30 under 30, people who like won the award for being like the best student at Berkeley, you know, Knight Hennessy scholar, people with like cool Twitter accounts or bios. And I took all those people, I put them in a group chat together on Facebook, and I was like, hey, I know some of you, I don't know others. We have dinners on my patio on Friday nights. You're invited. And I just like made an event. And so the first night, 20 people showed up. The second night, like 35 people showed up, like people brought friends. He made a ton of friends who were exactly the types of people he wanted to make friends with. And so like literally every day, at least 20% of my time is dedicated to this type of stuff. Now, sometimes it does get overwhelming. And I've had several moments where I would do a time audit of my time. And I will make a Google Sheet, break it down by 30-minute increments, and then I will label what I did in that time: SEO research, performance marketing, helping other people, you know, whatever. And sometimes I'll find that I'm spending like 25% of my time helping other people, and like my goals are not being met. And so I'm like, okay, fine. For the next month, I'm going to consciously reduce the amount of time I'm spending on other people. But like this is key. And so one of my philosophies around life is love is the most important thing in life. And the more you give of it, the more you have to give. It's like fire. You light one candle, and it can light multiple other flames without extinguishing the original one. You can also think of it as a jug of water, that the more you pour out of it, the bigger the jug gets. Because the love inside you, the well of love, increases as you practice giving love. And what gives joy in life is not actually receiving love. It is giving love. And at the end of the day, what everybody wants more than anything else, more than money, more than houses, more than cars, more than fame, it's to be loved. And it costs you nothing to give love to somebody else. It costs you nothing. But you will find that if you do this, the world will bombard you with love constantly. It might take 6 months, it might take 12 months, 20 months for that investment to pay a return, but it always does. So it's just always worth it to like use that framework. Okay, making decisions, building products, scaling products. Let's talk about AI. Okay. So in 2015, I started reading a bunch of academic papers about the narrow applications of deep learning. So I said a lot of words here. Let's back up a little bit. At the end of the day, machine learning is statistics. It's just math. KL divergence, matrices, and think about like a normal calculator. Your brain, just like, it's very, 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 very good at some types of calculations, and it's incredible at pattern matching. It is, so there's this concept in physics, entropy. To me, reverse entropy is one of the sexiest concepts in the world. It's like making things like really orderly. And I think that that is magic. And if there were fairies in the world, they just like get attracted to like really organized things like the chip in this computer. But really, more than anything, your brains, right? So the brains have, I don't even know how to say the number, quadrillion synapses and like so many nodes. Deep learning or neural networks mimic how the human brain works. And it's just many layers. And essentially, you can think about them as black boxes that are exceptional at pattern recognition. So humans can recognize faces really, really well, right? If I see your face and I meet you, a year, 2 years later, I'll recognize your face. It's very difficult to teach a computer by rote, method after method after method, how to recognize a face. But you know what's really easy? Is let's say you want the computer. I use Speechify as an example. Let's say you want a computer to create a synthetic voice that sounds exactly like me. How do you do that? Well, the rudimentary version is you take 100 hours of me speaking with the text, and you feed it into this black box, and you ask it learn. And you build like, equation that figures out the output, is it good or is it bad? And so this is called a loss function, and you want the loss function to be as close to 0 as possible. And then you feed it text, and it should create the MP3 file. That's like rudimentary level 1. But the better way to do it is to take hundreds of millions of hours of audio. Every podcast, every YouTube video, every whatever. You feed that with a text into this black bubble, and now it's like amazing. Like you want it to speak like with an Australian accent, you pepper a little bit of Hugh Jackman in there, and like sounds bomb. Then you give it my voice, and it starts to speak. And so in Speechify, maybe I can show you guys a demo. I'll just give my voice as an example. So now, Speechify number 1 makes the highest quality voices in the world by far. 2, we do it the most affordably. And 3, we're able to clone voices to a degree that has like never been possible before in the history of the world. And let's see if I can give an example.
Chapter 1, Protagonist, Spark. To burn always with this hard, gem-like flame, to maintain this ecstasy is success in life. Walter Pater, writer. The idea for this book came blurting into my brain on a flight from Pittsburgh to Silicon Valley. My 99 belongings were in the mail, my backpack was bloated with few clothes and many dreams, and I had just finished rereading You Shall Know Her Velocity by Dave Eggers, a frenzied novel in which the broken but sad...
So it's my voice. It's the same person. This is off of 5 seconds of me speaking. So how does that work? What you do is, you guys are familiar with polynomials, right? So y equals ax plus b. But polynomials can be really long, right? ax plus by plus like times a million. If you ever do multivariable calculus, you'll find that you have like x, y, and then like z. And then you can add other parameters, texture, color, whatever it might be. So when we do narrow applications of deep learning in this way, which today is called generative AI, but originally it was called narrow applications of deep learning, you go, okay, here's a sample of Cliff's voice. It's 5 seconds. Let me figure out what is the prosody of the voice. What is the hertz? What is the volume? What is the sentence intonation? And let me place that in the 3D space. And like it can go different places, but we're not talking about a 3D matrix. We're talking about a matrix with like millions of parameters. Now this can be true for speech, but it can also be true for predicting the weather. It can be true for recognizing your face. It could be true for statistically figuring out what is the next word that should happen in the sentence given 5 words that have already been inputted, ChatGPT. So this is called being autoregressive. So in this form, this is called zero-shot cloning. So I can zero-shot clone my voice very, very accurately. Now, I can give you an example of like other voices of Speechify. I like Henry. Let me find Henry. Did we change this?
Greetings, I'm Henry.
All right. He's like,
The spied hero drowns on the cover. The book starts right on the cover, flashes back 3 months, and drags his best friend to Senegal, Morocco, and Estonia in 1 week to give away all of his money and chase adventure.
So
I gave
the
cherished
speed
book to
I
the woman
typically would
sitting
listen
next
to
me,
is this.
who had heard an energy laughing part, which tries to leap from car to a dump cart in Marrakesh. I thought, here's a guy who lives so much in 1 week that all the photo books pages, and he had to summarize the rest of his 3 month epic pages a sentence and type the cover. What have I done in the last 3 months? Wrote code for 17 hours. Got better handstands and pull-ups. Packed my moving box. Discovered.
So the nice thing is, one, all of you can learn how to listen at that speed, I guarantee. Two, there's about 450,000 audiobooks that have been recorded. But there's 100 million books that have been written and published. And so that means that the vast majority of content in the world does not have an audiobook. And this was something that, to me, was very, very frustrating because I wanted to learn, like I wanted to read. I just did not have easy access to it. Every email that is in your inbox does not have an audio recording. And the thing is, if you're dyslexic, yes, you need that type of support, or if you have ADHD. But the majority of Speechify's users today do not have a learning difference. People use Speechify because, one, it lets you listen faster than you can read. Right? If you listen to podcasts or audiobooks or WhatsApp messages or YouTube at 1.5x speed, by definition, you listen faster than you can read. Number two, it's less boring. Why is it less boring? Because reading is computationally intensive. 95% of your brain is decoding. There's a part right here that's in charge of decoding. When you listen, it's like 3% of your brain is decoding. The rest can just focus on comprehension. So you don't get fatigued. You don't get bored. And lastly, when you do listen fast, when you are not exhausting your brain, and when you use two senses at the same time, listening and reading together, 70% of Speechify's usage is with the phone open or the computer open. By the way, more people use the Chrome extension than the Mac app than the iOS app at this point. Your attention, comprehension, all go up. And not to mention, you can listen to audiobooks and take notes. So that's great. So we just launched a new app called Speechify Books, which we close contracts with all the top publishers in the United States to resell their audiobooks and ebooks. So it's exactly like Audible, except the voice quality is higher. You can listen way faster with 0.1 increments. You can take notes, and you can see the text while you listen at the same time. So check out Speechify Audiobooks. Thank you. OK, back to AI. So when you do this, there's a couple of things that are important. The first one is what we call the training. Actually, even before the training is the data. So if you've ever heard about like a data scientist or data engineer, like this is the type of stuff that they do. One, where do you find the data? So the difference, or often the moat, between different companies or open source projects that are using AI is, can they find some proprietary data? And sometimes proprietary just means that you found a better way of harvesting the data and cleaning and organizing the data. There's a very big startup called Scale.ai. It's been doing really, really well. The main thing that company did is just figure out how to clean data and make it more useful. OK, so if you can figure out how to build massive amounts of data, then you feed it into a model. So that model, you call it scaffolding. And AI engineers will build this model to use the data. And then you need to make your loss function. And then you want to start finding something that is useful. Now, there's a very challenging thing that happens around this stage of AI engineering, which is, what if the model converges to infinity? What if after you did all this work, you brought all this data, you wrote all this code, the outcome is meh? Or it's like, it's meh. You think it's good when you listen to it, but the computer doesn't recognize that it's good. And so you don't get enough signal to make it better. So this is where intuition actually comes into play. And if you build enough, you start knowing, it's almost like an art. We call it parameter whispering. You know how to coax the model to do what you want, and then boom, you succeed in starting to have some little bit of signal. And when you have some little bit of signal, you can easily now regress to finding really, really good signal. And then it's like deploying it to production, like actually coding it into the iPhone app, actually putting it on the website, et cetera. One very big thing that changed recently is NVIDIA came out with a new GPU called H100 GPUs. So a little bit of history. I started working on Speechify in 2015 because I thought the research around deep learning was great. But I knew that at the time, I was not a good enough AI engineer to make a dent. So I thought, OK, I'm going to build the user-facing portion of this. I'm going to build the Android app and the iPhone app and the Chrome extension and the Mac app. And I'm going to get people to use it. And I'll build great user experiences. And I'll do it with technology that is currently available today. Text-to-speech has been around since the 1960s. It predates the internet. But I knew that it would change. And so my thesis for building companies is, if you want to build something huge that Amazon and Google and Facebook and Baidu and IBM won't copy, you want to do it on a playing field that has not already been set. You want the new playing field that everybody's going to fight over. So I was like, OK, I can see a big difference because of all these academic papers that I'm learning. At the time, I read a paper called WaveNet that I was very excited by. I can see that there's going to be a huge inflection around speech synthesis, optical character recognition, transcription, translation, natural language processing, and recommendation engines. But it's not going to happen now. It's going to happen over the next, 5 to 10 years. cool, I'm going to sit here like an umpire in baseball. I'm going to wait for the ball. And the second I get the ball, because this technology has gotten better, I'm going to pass it into my iPhone app and Chrome extension and everything else. And I already have the users. And I'll have an incentive to invest in building technology myself because I already have all these users using my products. 2015. 2017, inside of Google, the transformer was invented. Transformer is just like a better mathematical equation. Then, general pre-trained transformer algorithms were invented. ChatGPT, GPT, general pre-trained transformers. Then, A100 GPUs came about. So what is a GPU? Most computers have a CPU that runs their processing, but a GPU is a graphics processing unit. Typically, you only heard about these as it relates to video games. Turns out GPUs are like the best at running computation. What does that mean? They're teraflops per second. A flop is like plus, minus, divide, subtract. The number of those they can do per second is really, really high. That's why typically we use them for mining Bitcoin and stuff. But they also turn out to be the best thing to train AI models on. So A100 GPUs were about 3x faster than any GPU that existed beforehand. And so your computer has a consumer GPU, A100 are a commercial GPU. You put it in like a data center. Microsoft built the largest cluster of A100 GPUs ever for OpenAI to train on. And OpenAI in 2020 launched GPT-3. But only in 2022, 2021 did ChatGPT come about, and that's when people started to take notice. And it's the same model. The user experience was innovated. So previously, it would load for like 30 seconds and then give you the answer. But instead, they made it load auto-regressively. So like, it's actually interesting to see it type it out. And they reformatted into, instead of just like, they reformatted it into chat interface. And so it shows you that even if you build amazing technology, unless you're building an innovation around user experiences, you need both to actually build something that is transformative. Now, 4 months ago, H100 GPUs came about. So H100 GPUs are like 6x faster than A100s, in production like 2.4x faster. And that completely changed everything. And if you notice like the rise in the stock of like NVIDIA, this is partly why. And they have like essentially a monopoly on commercial GPUs. So we at Speechify are sitting and we're looking at this and we're like, wow, this is like such a huge opportunity. And if you look at startups that were extremely successful in the past, let's take a couple of examples. They always ride technological waves that have nothing to do with them. Okay, so Oracle came about because relational databases became a thing. Right before 2004, when Facebook started, MySQL started to be really good. So it was easy to build a network like Facebook. And servers actually started to get a little bit better. And why did Facebook win against MySpace? It's because mainly MySpace did not have enough server space. And so it started crashing. Mark Zuckerberg took out a huge loan to buy more servers because he never wanted the site to be down. 2005, YouTube. 2005, it was too early to build a video streaming platform for it to be financially feasible because it was very expensive. However, that's exactly the point in time where mobile phones started to have a camera that did not look like it was shot on a calculator. Buffering speeds became fast enough where you don't need to wait 5 minutes. And Sequoia bankrolled them with like $1 million a month to pay for the server space. And that's a great move because what they were doing is they were pulling the future forward just by a little bit. So if you wait 2 years, 3 years, it becomes economical, but they already have market share. Uber. Uber came about before the App Store. Uber started off as a web app on the iPhone because it was the first time people had a consumer phone that had a GPS and good connectivity to the internet and a user interface that was like legitimate. And then when the App Store came about, obviously it exploded more. And so these are situations where you could not have built that product 2 years prior because the technology did not exist. Even in that moment in time, the technology did not exist. You build something so that when the technology exists, boom, it clicks in, and that's how you win when you're in competition against a bunch of other startups and a bunch of other companies. Is you build theses around the future that are insightful because you're auto-completing, like a little deep learning AI algorithm, what's going to happen in the world. And so, I happened to do this in a very narrow area, and then luckily was able to expand and expand and expand and expand from there. Okay, so we talked about how to harvest and clean data. We talked about how to train models. We talked about how to what's called run inference. Inference is when you actually used your AI model. And so you can run it on an H100 GPU, on an A100. You can run it, on your computer, et cetera. And so what at Speechify we've done is we've vertically integrated all the way down, so it's cheaper for us to run the inference. OpenAI, last I checked, was spending like $3 million a day just on compute, right? And it's a product that is predominantly free. In the same way that YouTube was fronting the bill for people paying for the servers, in the same way that Facebook was before. But look at what happened in such a short and quick period of time. And so what previously was servers, or what previously was phones, is now GPUs. Cool. So, Dale Carnegie and Henry Frick say, gentlemen, watch your costs. And so, and ladies. And so it's always a mix between, do you have something that is innovative? Do you have something that allows people to do something that they could not previously do, right? Advil, not a vitamin. There's some like UX improvement, but you banked on something that has changed, and when it's there, it's like an alley-oop in basketball. Like they throw it to you, and like you're already up in the air when the ball comes, and you can dunk it. Okay, that's a pretty good explanation of AI. We can go into it more. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that is particularly important. I think that's fine. Two more things about making decisions, and then we'll talk about happiness. I think one thing that has really benefited me in my life is I developed the ability to easily develop admiration for other people. And it doesn't matter who they are. I really admire Gail, who was the person who would swipe my card in college when I would enter the cafeteria, because she would always be reading books. She loved fantasy books, and I would talk to Gail about her books. I really admired Vinny, who was the janitor in one of our eateries, because he started a conversation with me about Bernie Sanders. And I was like, oh, you like understand this to such a degree, and you have a completely different life view than me. Like, this is a great conversation. And in the same way, I might admire Jobs or Musk or whomever. Two guys that I really admire are Alexander Hamilton and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, both of these guys have a lot of deplorable things, right? They both cheated on their wives. They're both a little bit egotistical. But like, they did such great things for the world. And being able to separate those two things, the things about people that are like not tasteful and the things about people that are like exceptional, is very, very valuable. And so, don't admire the not good things, but take like the good things from them and be like, I want to adopt that. And so, I started reading about Elon Musk in 2012 because I was studying renewable energy engineering. And there's a saying, don't meet your idols. And I was like, I have a sense that in this case, this is very true. I met Elon, and like everything I thought was great, and everything I expected would be like less than great. But that's fine, because you can still admire those people for those things. And so the types of books that have added the most value to my life, other than philosophy and fantasy, are biographies. I've listened to at least 200 biographies at this point. And so what I highly, highly encourage you to do is develop the ability to take initiative, be a sovereign individual, and like shatter limiting beliefs. And for me, one of the ways that I do that is reading biographies, but also identifying real people who are practitioners in the field today who are doing it really well. So one more point I'll give about AI is I'll talk about Ilya, who's the head scientist at OpenAI, and Sam Altman, who's the CEO of OpenAI. So OpenAI is the company that made ChatGPT. Probably heard about it. And I think that Ilya and Sam Altman are geniuses. Why do I use the word genius? Smart is being able to hit a target other people can't hit. Genius is being able to hit a target other people can't see. And so if you think about the most classic genius, right? Einstein, like all the information was in front of us this entire time. He didn't have more advanced math skill than other people. He needed help writing his formulas. But he used a bunch of cross-pollination of different ideas, like riding a bicycle along the wave, to come up to insights that other people did not succeed. Okay, so Ilya and Sam want to build AI safety. They want to build general intelligence. And they're like, how do we do this? And they both have very good skills. Ilya is an amazing AI engineer, and Sam is amazing at fundraising and recruiting. And I think about Sam Altman as very similar to Christopher Columbus. Why? So Columbus goes, you can go around the world. And people are like, yeah, right, you idiot. And you go, no, you really can. And he convinces one person to believe in him, the King of Spain, who funds this expedition. So Sam Altman is like, you can make general intelligence. He's like, yeah, man, not for the next 100 years. And he convinces one person to help him, Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, and then later Bill Gates. And he doesn't get all the way around the world, and they don't figure out how to build general intelligence. But on the way, they found America. And on the way, they found a natural language processing method called ChatGPT. So what was the insight here that was like unusual? It's actually surprisingly similar to what happened to Columbus. I really believe in life that the way you get really good is more reps than everybody else, just like volume of work. And so they were willing to do more volume of work. They were like, we are going to sail the ship all the way around the world. One, that's crazy, man. Like, that's so much distance. Two, you're going to fall off the side of the earth. Like, at the time, most of the world thought the world was flat. And these guys are like, yeah, we're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars training our model without any idea what's going to come out from the other side. And we're going to get so much data, and the thesis is that if you train a gigantic amount of data, gigantic, with a gigantic amount of compute, with good algorithms, you'll end up with magic on the other side. And that's exactly what happened. And when you look at other companies that have since tried to emulate this type of strategy, it works. And so let's take it back to Einstein. Einstein has a really good line. There were like two things that humans' brains can't really understand, and one of them is compound interest. So compound interest is the same thing as exponential growth. Humans are just bad at understanding exponential growth. We understand linear growth, but exponential growth, like our brains can't compute it. This is what happens when you talk about training this amount of data, right? Humans can remember 50 people very easily. We can count to 10 very easily. But the second you start talking about a million, a billion, a trillion, quadrillion parameter, we do not have the ability to easily intuitively comprehend it. Now, there's stuff that you can do to practice getting used to it. Like in the course of my life, I've gotten much, much better at intuitively understanding big numbers. But therefore, it's not obvious to go and build stuff like this. But when you do it, and this is the thing that makes AI so much more powerful than humans, at the end of the day, it's just math. It's just math done on so much data with so many equations and so many parameters that it is indistinguishable from magic. And it starts to get as deep as the human brain is complex when it comes to the amount of neurons and synapses in your brain. And the place where it starts to get scary is we're going to end up with computers that have more nodes than your brain, more synapses than your brain, that have a bigger GPU than your brain, and have a larger hard drive than your brain, so they can store more information. That's when things get really, really, really scary, because that thing we defined before, the difference between smart and genius, these eureka moments, they don't come out of nothing. These realizations of how to hit a target other people can't see, they happen because you cross-pollinate information from different fields. And so this is why sometimes we call it intuition, right? Einstein was very intuition-led. And so this machine is going to be able to start to have intuition that humans can't have, because we don't have as many parameters. We don't have as much compute power. So that's very valuable to know. Now, don't be that scared. That's still going to take a long time. And a lot of people, smart people, are working on AI safety. But in the meantime, before we get there, I don't know when we're going to get there, you can use what's called narrow applications of deep learning. You harvest this good ability to do pattern matching, to do things that otherwise would have been impossible. Cloning 5 seconds of my voice into an unlimited amount of my voice. Or taking every YouTube video and translating it to every language, because we can do translation, we can do dubbing, we can do text-to-speech, speech-to-text, amazing. And again, you can predict the weather with it. You can do whatever you want. It's legitimately magic. Okay, last topic, and then I'm going to open it up to questions. Pillars of happiness. At the end of the day, why do we do all the things that we do, right? Why do you go to work? Why do you want to be happy. You want to be thriving. So I think about it as a difference between what I call momentary bliss, enjoying the moment, like I'm really enjoying this, and eudaimonia, right, the good life. So when I was a kid, like 5 years old, I used to talk to myself all the time, especially when I was on the toilet. And I remember sitting on the toilet, talking to myself. I was like sitting in this bathroom in my house, like had pink walls, and I was like, I wonder what the meaning of life is. My favorite thing was going on a roller coaster. So maybe roller coasters are the meaning of life. But no, that doesn't make sense. Maybe it's going fast. That's the meaning of life. Clearly, I was Elmo when I was 5. And I concluded the meaning of life was to have fun, which is a good conclusion for a 5-year-old. And then with time, I edited it and developed it. And there was a day I was babysitting some kids when I was in high school, and my mom was like, "Oh, Cliff, it's a full moon. You get 30 moon wishes. Write out your wishes." So I took a notebook, and after I put the kids to bed with my rendition of Harry Potter, I wrote out my 30 wishes. And I was like, imagine if I had a genie who gave me 3 wishes only. How do I collapse these 30 wishes into folders so I can ask for one question to get all of them? And I ended up with 3 top goals in life. And at the time, it was, I think I wanted to be a billionaire. I wanted to, find like the right life partner, and I think it was something relating to music. And with time, those goals really, really changed because I read books, I met people, I did a lot of things, and they got edited to number one goal in life is to be the best person that I can be and to have kids who are greater than me, right? More than anything, I just want to be like a really good dad. And I don't have kids, I will not for a very long time, and so the best thing that I could do is just be the best person that I could be so that when I have kids, I can teach them the things that I know and I can protect them and take care of them. Number two is give as much love as I can into the world, to my friends, to my family, to my partner, to whomever it might be. And number three is create as much value in the world as possible and elevate the collective quality of life. And right now, I get to do that by building tech companies, but more and more, I get to do that by mentoring people as well and sharing ideas. When it comes to figuring out what to do in life, one of the great things that comes out of writing a lot is you develop principles. So after I wrote that 30-page paper, I wrote 28 principles that I believe that most other people do not. If you search Cliff Weitzman Medium Principles, you can find it. And that was very helpful because these guiding principles help you a lot to make decisions. And one of them is this idea that in life, you often get option A and option B. And you might not want either one. And in most cases, you just have to choose. But in some rare cases, you also get, actually in every case, you also get option C and option D that most people do not consider genius. Because they take a lot more time and a lot more luck and a lot more effort. And statistically, they will not work for you 99% of the time. But when situations are important enough, you gotta go for them. So going back to making decisions, I feel like the worst thing that you could do coming out of graduate school or university is to not apply your own thinking about what you want in your life and what makes you uniquely happy, and just do what other people are doing and end up doing consulting or investment banking or any of these things. So how do you figure out what to do if it's not those things? By the way, when you do that, you're abdicating your choice, your freedom essentially, to good job like BCG and like McKinsey and Goldman. Like they figured out where to find really smart people and make it easy for you not to think, but like they shouldn't hire you anyway if you make these types of decisions, unless you really love finance, in which case it makes perfect sense. Oh, actually, in which case, just make your own hedge fund. Anyway, it's worthwhile thinking and writing and figuring it out. And the way you do that is you read a lot, you meet people that are not like you, and you try things that you otherwise would not try. And so if you can't make that decision, which is very common and very normal, find people you admire, even in books or practitioners or whatever, and get as close to them as possible. If you can work with them, do that. And then learn from them and pattern match, and then it makes it really, really easy to figure out how to improve your life to the degree that you want to. Which brings me to the most important point, happiness. Started working on Speechify 7 years ago. We've been remote first for 6 years, so far before COVID. And the reason was that at a certain point, I decided that I wanted freedom of time and freedom of place, because I had an apartment in San Francisco. I would wake up at like 8 or 9 a.m. every single day. I'd like immediately open the door. I'd go in the shower. Everybody would come in. So like 10 minutes from waking up, I'd be working. And if I was not working, other people would not be working. And so I was working from like 9 a.m. to midnight every single day, and I like got close to burning myself out. I was like, this is not sustainable. Plus, this is not fun. Like, I don't want to be like 50 years old and like going into an office every day. That sounds boring. And so I started hiring people all over the world, and I decided that not all smart people happen to be living in the Bay Area in California. And so we ended up with, I know, crazy, nuts. So we ended up with people who work for Speechify in 22 different countries all over the world. And every 5 months, I get a new house with a bunch of the leadership team, and we go and we live in a different place. London, Israel, New York, San Francisco, LA, Miami, wherever it might be. And that enriches my life a lot, because if you live in 3 different places in 1 year, it's like you lived 3 years in that 1 year. Because again, diminishing marginal returns. After the first 3 months in a place, like every day starts to meld into each other. So I try to make a change, because I know, by the way, I'm going to live to 200. So hopefully I'll take some of you guys with me. But I'd love to live a full life inside of those 200 years. And so I'm trying to maximize every single year. The number one thing I have found to help increase your motivation, increase your happiness, and help you break the distance between Cliff here and Cliff here is to live with other people who are more motivated than you. And so that might be they're more motivated to learn. Yesterday, I went to the apartment in New York, where Simon and Chaitu on our team live, and it was 11 p.m., and Simon, who's our COO, is studying math. He's sitting there with he's not in school. He's sitting there with a textbook, and he is doing equations. and he shows me very excitedly the next book he's going to read, and then he shows me excitedly the book he wants to do after that, which is the Soviet Union's mathematical Olympiad test. Just for kicks. And these are the types of people I want to live with. And it doesn't matter if it's math or if it's reading or if it's dancing or writing music. Find people who have a zest for life, passion for life, and do everything in your power to get them to be with you. So, there was a point where I paid for 3 people to break their leases. I booked 4 people's international flights so that they can come live with me. And I am sure that I have the record for the most visas applied for other people as a person in their 20s who is not a professional lawyer. And at this point, I'm better at immigration than the majority of immigration lawyers that I have seen. I've gotten people O1s, J1s, everything that you could possibly imagine. Because I wanted Simon to come to the United States, and it was hard. And he didn't have a college degree at the time. So in the end, I just read the law. In the same way I read the law. And then I figured out how to do it, and then I got a lawyer that would do the things that I wanted, and then we got it. So you just gotta figure out, again, in the same way that coding might be hard, or reading might be hard, or law might be hard, or whatever math might be, just do it. Just do it. And if it's hard to read those things, download the Speechify Mac app, click play, and it'll read it to you. It will not be boring. All right, so quick summary of how to have an awesome life. Number 1, be bold, do not suffer. Develop the strength to do bold things, not to endure suffering. Number 2, handle your fear. So be realistic about what you actually have to lose. And so you could do a fear-setting exercise, right? Maybe you have this offer from BCG or McKinsey or whomever, and maybe you really want to go be a hot air balloon pilot. All right, what am I going to lose by doing this? So I did that for Speechify. I was like, cool. Either I'm going to go work for Palantir or Google or one of these places, or I work on Speechify. Well, Bezos uses the regret minimization framework. Let's say I work on Speechify in 2 years and it fails. What happens then? Well, defeated, Cliff goes back to his home and sleeps in his childhood bed. His parents are so ashamed they don't even want him to live at home, so he has to get friends to let him sleep on their couches. I know that I have at least 20 friends who let me do maybe 5 to 7 days each. I'll be fine, and I'll learn more skills, and I know I can get a job on Upwork getting paid $30 an hour to build apps, and I'll get the job from Google anyway. Better to just chase after the dream than just give up along the way. Choose when to go ham, right, in life. Option A and option B. There's always option C and D. They just require way more work and way more lack, but sometimes it's worth it to double down. There is always a way inside of human RAND system to circumnavigate an obstacle by finding the person at the top of the governance structure and getting them to give you a special exception. For example, I loved Brown. My cheeks started to hurt from smiling so much 3 months in. And so instead of graduating, I convinced two of my professors to sponsor me as a visiting scholar. I just read the constitution of the school. I found there was a position called visiting scholar, and I went to 2 professors who did not know it exists and got them to sponsor me. So I got a student ID, a student email, I lived on campus, I stayed on meal plan, I didn't pay tuition, I didn't have homework. It was amazing, and I just worked on products. There's this concept called AQ, adversity quotient. So a lot of people talk about IQ, intelligence quotients, or EQ, emotional intelligence. But if you succeed in a startup, and I think actually the most important thing for happiness in life, with the exception of EQ, is AQ, adversity quotient. It is how long you can go, how hard you can go when things are hard. And so if you consider all the things, that's probably the place that I excel. That's where I break the scale. And you can practice, in the same way you can practice confidence, you can practice developing the ability to have higher AQ. In life, I have a concept called tree of knowledge. So when you're in elementary school, middle school, high school, whatever, you build the trunk of this tree, and then in college you build all these branches. And every book you read is like a leaf that's on these branches. And unless you have a branch to put that leaf on, it's going to float away. And so often I end up rereading books because I'll now have context from the first time I read the book, and then it'll get fleshed out. And the other way to think about it is like a mental model of the universe. So imagine Google Maps. In some places you zoom in and it's super pixelated, but some places you zoom in and it's super fleshed out. And so those areas of life might be physics, chemistry, how the finance world works, how government works, how friendship dynamics work, psychology, whatever. Try to flesh out your tree of knowledge as much as you can by having conversations with people, trying things other people don't try, reading a lot of books, and it'll help you make better decisions. The better your information, the better your decision-making process. Develop principles, both practical and general. and understand other people's priorities in life. And the best way to do that is just by asking questions. Speak and write to clear your thoughts. And most importantly, listen to audiobooks. Thank you guys for listening. And then we have some time, so I'm going to open it up to questions. Yes?
You mentioned you built 36 products while you were in college.
Yes.
I'm in that same place right now. How did you get funding to, build skateboard brakes and like all these different things?
Pass on, yeah, cool, great. You build 36 products in college. How did you get funding to do all that? So the first thing I did is the board break. And I started working on it on a hackathon that happens in Johnson & Wales College. And Johnson & Wales had a maker studio with a 3D printer. Brown did not at the time. And so I let me borrow the 3D printer. I went to another school's makerspace to build it. And I just learned Onshape and worked on it. And then RISD is another school by Brown. And I knew I needed help from industrial designers. And I just crashed a RISD event. And it was like a presentation, and someone was not there. So I was like, can I go instead? And they're like, yeah. So I took a sketch, made a picture of what I wanted to build the skateboard brake on, braked my skateboard. And it was a room maybe half the size of this. And I was like, hey, I'm working on this thing. And 2 people stayed after and helped me sketch out a way better version of what board brake would look like. And I met them a couple of times. They helped me. In that hackathon, I won. And so they gave me a little bit of money. And in another hackathon that I did at MIT, I found a guy who was a mentor in the D lab, the design lab. And the 3D printed versions were not as good, and I needed to mold something myself. And so that guy helped me. I spent $60 on Smooth On, and we made a physical version. And then I was like, cool, the next step is to do a Kickstarter. So I looked at all the well-performing Kickstarters, and there was one Kickstarter by this guy at Stanford. So I sent him an email. He was super nice. And when I went back home to California, I drove 2 hours to Stanford, spent a bunch of time with him in his dorm room, and he helped me a lot. And so that's how it didn't cost me any money. The next thing I built was a mini Faraday cage. And so I went on Amazon. I bought a big sheet of silver lined fabric. I think it cost me $45. And then I went to RISD, and I had some people help me cut it and be the right space. And I went on the free subscription of Weebly, and I built a website for it. For iPhone apps, I just worked on the over school breaks to get good at coding, and I just built it. So I didn't need funding for any of these things. One thing that I did do is I wasn't a US citizen at the time, so it was hard for me to get scholarships. And there was a summer where I was interning. I worked as an iOS freelancer on Upwork, and I hired 10 freelancers in the Philippines to find and apply to scholarships for me full time. And I had them fill this sheet up to 100 with scholarships that were relevant to me. Stuff for people studying energy, studying math, above X GPA, Jewish from Marin County, whatever. And I basically paid for all my school that way. And there was a huge arbitrage between how much I was making on Upwork and how much I was paying people, because it was international. And then I built a software called findmescholarships.com as a website that if you gave me a bunch of information about you, it would use Upwork's API to automatically hire freelancers, generate a Google Sheet for you, and then run the process for you, and you'd pay me on PayPal. So you can always find these types of hacks. The classic one is the Airbnb founders making Obama's and Captain McCain's. But the trick is, so there's a concept of being a manager and being an IC, individual contributor. Just learn how to be an individual contributor. You need a designer, learn how to design. You need a coder, learn how to code. You need a copywriter, learn how to copyright. I was head of every single department at Speechify. I led design, I led product, I led engineering. The only role I did not head was AI, and it's because my brother Tyler did his undergrad in math and then his master's in AI at Stanford, and he's the most talented person I've ever met in my life. He started coding and assembly in 5th grade. And so he joined Speechify 5.5 years in, and he leads the AI team. Okay, yes?
Yosef, I'm coming from Dubai. Sorry, my voice is a bit
No worries.
sore throat. I've been using your app since the first early days. I was going through the same process where I wanted something to help me with reading. 2 questions.
I'll repeat it, yeah.
Question number 1, have you considered adding other languages?
It works in 60 languages.
Including Arabic?
Including Arabic. It's great in Arabic.
I should try. Where do you see Speechify in 5 years? I see other platforms having their own audio, but where do you see this evolve?
Yeah, so Speechify supports 60 languages, so just enable them inside of the voice picker on iOS or Chrome or Mac. Where do I see Speechify in 5 years? Look, we're like 110 people now. We'll probably be a couple of thousand. And the goal is to make sure that reading is never a barrier to learning for anyone, no matter where you are in the world. So I'd love to walk into the room. He's like, hi, my name is Cliff. I have dyslexia and ADHD. Anyone have dyslexia and ADHD? Anyone have this? Oh, interesting. Anybody heard of Speechify before? Anybody use Speechify? Oh, great. This is the reverse of how I expected it to go. But yeah, I want to be able to go anywhere. And so, you got like 25 million folks now who use it. I'd love to get to like 2.5 billion. Yes. Okay. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, first I want to say that I admire your story about the stolen laptop.
Oh.
And yeah, it's really funny. And my question is, when you say to be persistent, how far do you think like a person should go to achieve their goal?
Thank you. So she's referring to when I was a freshman in college, somebody stole my laptop, and I spent the next 7.5 hours tracking it down, which is a very funny story, but also a good story about perseverance. So the question is, when do you know to stop? And so there's a concept that I have, which is going ham. Like, I will not stop at any. So the crux of this story is I found the guy after 7.5 hours, and I chased him down this dark alley. And I was very small at the time. And I was like, I know you have my laptop. Take it out now and put it on the ground. He's like, I don't have your laptop. I was like, I know you have my laptop. Take it out now and put it on the ground. He's like, I don't have your laptop. I know you have my laptop. Take it out now. I will not follow you. Police will not follow you, etc. But if you don't, I will follow you till the ends of the earth until I get it back. I will follow you to Boston. I will follow you to New York. I will follow you to California. Take out my laptop and put it on the ground. So the guy looks back at me. He's like, who is this insane 18-year-old I stole a laptop from? Takes out my laptop, puts it on the ground. I pick it up. I give it a little kiss. I'm like, take out my charger and put it on the ground. So one, I stayed like 20 feet away just in case he had like anything on him. Hindsight 2020, this was not necessarily the correct move. Today I would not do it, but at the time, this laptop was like 90% of my liquid net worth. Considering the fact that I had loans for college, it was like, yeah. And if I missed it, I would have to like use a Dell instead of a Mac, and like that would have sucked.
Oh, no.
Right. And so it depends. And I think what you got to do is identify the moments in life where it actually really matters. So let's say United screws you on a flight. It's not that deep, If a friend borrows $50 and they don't give it back, it's not that deep. But like, if someone bullies your brother, yeah, destroy that guy. So like, I think that's how it works. And so for me, I was a student in college. I had the huge luxury and freedom to choose what I wanted to do. I had worked the previous summer to make enough money so that I could continue working on my own thing. So after college was where it was challenging because I didn't have accommodations. So I worked for 3 months, made enough money that I knew that it could cover rent, food, miscellaneous costs for 10 months. And if I did not succeed in that 10 months, I would have gone back to that job, done it again, rerun the year until I figured it out. So I think that's like a really good trick to come up with. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Behind you, and then you.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you. I want to give a quick shout out. I want to give a quick shout out to you and to my friend Saad, who has been using your app, and he actually introduced your talks. I'm really grateful to him. And I want to ask you, I love this talk. How do you find the population you want to serve? Because I also want to live in the US. There's so much difference I can make in my home community of Pakistan, but how do I find the people and the problem that I really want to work for?
Do you want to serve people in Pakistan, or you want to serve people in the US?
I want to, ideally Pakistan.
Let's talk about that. Cool. Here's what I would do. Number one, what is the biggest social network in Pakistan? Is it LinkedIn? Is it TikTok? Is it YouTube? Is it Facebook?
It's Facebook.
Great. Fantastic. Here's what you do. Identify 20 Facebook groups of people who have a specific acute issue. Every day for the next 50 days, make a post on those groups and make the post at least have 300 words in it. And practice copywriting. So good hook, second good hook, third good hook. Take the same post, post it on every single group, but like change like little things. And at the end, say, hey, my name is, what's your name?
Iza.
My name is Iza. Link to follow you on Facebook. if you have a product, link the product in the comments, and then write, this is a post that is one of a series of a book I'm writing about X problem, and then come back and edit that the next day and link to the new post, and also link to the old post, and also link to a table of contents that describes every post you're going to do in the next 50 days. You'll find that you'll gain a tremendous number of followers, move those followers to an email list later, because then you'll be able to control the email list, and the email list will tell you exactly where in Pakistan those people are, because you'll ask for it. And then let's say you want to throw some event in Y city, boom, all the people in that city get an email from you. And so do that on Facebook, but also do that on LinkedIn. And if you get really, really good at this type of copywriting, hire other people to copyright for you as well. You can have like a little army of people who do this. Typically, people do this on SEO. So take all the stuff that you do, also make it on WordPress, make sure it's SEO indexable with Google. And then you'll also start winning all the search terms relating to whatever topic you want to do. So I have a friend, Rohan Pavalori. He went to Harvard. Actually, he got funding from the Innovation Lab here, I think. And he built a company called Upsolve that eliminated $500 million of debt for low-income Americans. The population he was serving were people who were in debt because of medical bills and other things like that. And so he found that through Google Maps, he could win the search term for bankruptcy lawyer in X city. So he just like did that. And to go on Google Maps, you need like a little pamphlet that you confirm. So he just found 50 friends in 50 cities and had them just register as if their house was like a bankruptcy court. And then he like won that as, so like just find hacks like that. And then don't even bother building a product until you have an email list with 10,000 people on it. Hire a co-founder or somebody else to build the product. Start by acquiring the users. So for example, if I wanted to rerun what I'm doing today, I would do this exact strategy on LinkedIn. And in the comments, I'd say, drop your email. And then I'd pick up, also say that in the thing. Why? Because comments, engagement, push the algorithm. And then I put them on my email list. That's how to do it. The nice part is today, you do not need a followership in order to be impactful online. Why? Because every single platform, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, it's 100% up to the amount of engagement you get. If of 100 impressions, 50 people read it to completion or comment, you will go to the front of everybody in your region. And it's just a bracket system until you get to the top. So do this on TikTok too. That's how to work on getting users for any platform.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Yes? And just so the question was before, I live in the United States. I like living in the United States. I want to impact people in Pakistan. How do I do that? So that's how I would start. Yes?
I wanted to ask in terms of when you develop your own, you said you were the head of every department in Speechify and everything. When, as a solopreneur in that field, how do you get to the position, or maybe you didn't face that, but just like being comfortable of, I guess, releasing some control?
Great question.
Or like equity
Yeah.
to even other people?
So if you remember the story, I hired a bunch of people on Upwork to apply to scholarships for me. And half the reason I did that is because I wanted to practice managing people in a work environment. And so I could do that for relatively cheap per hour. I got really good at managing people. My touch typing speed improved tremendously because I was messaging people on Slack and email all the time. And I needed to read people's Google Sheets of like the work that they were doing. I needed to like give feedback, criticize, whatever, fire people, hire people. Just hiring people is such an important skill. So I'm like so fortunate that at the age of 21, I hired many people. And by the way, I found that I needed to hire like 50 people to find one amazing person. It's just a volumes game. So start, just start. If you got to start in Upwork, paying people the minimum amount that is available, do that. Next is, luckily I am dyslexic. And so my entire life, I've not necessarily been the smartest person in the room. I needed to depend on my friends in sophomore year of high school to literally read the book. And so it's easy for me to believe that other people are smart. But trust, you have to verify. So give people a task like I gave to Simon, or like I said, hey, videographer. And if people rise to the occasion, amazing. If they don't, I have a tripod somewhere here, and I was going to film on my iPhone, but now it's way higher quality. Thank you, guys. That's the trick. I'm going to take one more question, and then I'm going to hang up in the front for a little bit and talk. OK, I'll take all 3 questions. Back first. Yes, in the back.
Hi. So my name is Esra. Nice to meet you. Actually, I have been using Speechify. It was kind of like promoting it just because it's amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Because I'm also like dyslexic and I'm a graduate student, so I had hard time like reading all the articles and then trying to write and do all the stuff. But I'm also like originally from Turkey. I came here for grad school. I felt like your story is amazing because like you were not born and raised here, and it tells a lot about all the people because like U.S. is so like diverse, like in a very good sense. But the AI or tech market or Bay Area or like San Francisco, like these places are not diverse in a sense that like only males have the, like I follow Ali Abdal. Like he wouldn't talk with me because like mostly he's so busy, but plus like it's just like being a female is different in the tech side.
Yes.
Like these cool guys who are like amazing coders, who know everything and who are like jumping on the ground. Like you're just trying to reach out to them, but like there is a like there is a transparent like a wall between you and them. It's just like, hey, I'm here. Like I have great ideas. Maybe I'm a genius. Like, but then they don't have this perspective on you. They're like so much blinded by your looking,
So I have
by
an
your
answer to the
gender,
question.
by your religion, by your like other things. And I'm still like, I didn't think you were so much into making like Speechify for all of the world. So I was so interested. So I started thinking, I should ask him, like, what is your idea about like making this field like more transparent, more inclusive, more diverse for all the genders, all the religions, and etc.
So the question is, I moved to the United States from Turkey, and I'm a woman, and the Bay Area seems very male-dominated. There's a difference between these types of CEOs. What do I do? So I'll say two things. One, I have a sister, Alex Weitzman. She just graduated from Stanford. She did an undergrad in symbolic systems. She did her master's in AI. She has a company called Ameer. She built a product called Text for My Ex that in like 3 days got like 40,000 downloads, 1 million impressions on TikTok. She invested time in building this type of system on Instagram and TikTok. And she has like investors chasing her all over the place and people reaching out to her, et cetera. So one, it's very doable as a woman. Two, the way to do it is you take ownership of the situation in the same way that for me with dyslexia, the school has like some level of support, but the support sucks, right? Kurzweil, which was the product that was available, sucks. So I just built my own. Now, here's the trick. It doesn't matter if you're 4 years old, you can meet any person and make them admire you and want to work with you. And the answer is stories. So you'll notice that in this talk, 90% of the talk was me just telling stories, right? So for example, if you walked into an office that I was part of, and you told me, hey, I'm from Turkey. My family is from this small village. We could not afford to send me to school here, and I got into this program. And so what I did is I hired 10 freelancers, and they did this. Be like, that is so creative. Come work for me so you can do this for other things. If you're this guy, Jan, from Uruguay, he could have been a girl. He was 16 years old. But he got 125,000 followers on TikTok. And then he wrote this 10-page document, and he did this. So get really good at, in 30 seconds, telling a story that shows that you have grit and creativity that is unusual, and people will do everything to work with you. That's the trick.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, green shirt, sorry.
Okay. No worries. Hi.
Mic behind you, yeah.
I'm a founder as well, and I would like to say first that resonated a lot with the laying down, being out of your comfort zone, because that's how you gotta do things, right? My question is more in terms of how do you manage your work and personal and spiritual life? Because I'm in a position where I've developed like this huge project, which is a national platform for education, and it brings me a lot of value and a lot of joy, but also it's quite complicated to be in charge and responsible of so many people. And you said, you have this part of happiness, personal goals that you also want to achieve. So I would like to hear more about that.
Great question. So the question is, hey, I'm also a founder. I resonated with a lot of things that you said. What was your name?
I'm Alex.
Alex. So Alex says, hey, I'm a founder. I resonated with many of the things that you said. I have an education platform that takes a long time to build. And maybe I feel a little bit burnt out because I'm trying to work on my startup. I'm trying to, live out my spiritual life. I'm trying to spend time with friends, maybe go to the gym, be healthy. How do you balance all this stuff? So I have 5 pillars to my happiness that are unique to me. Every person should find their own. And they are spending time on loved ones, listening to audiobooks, doing parkour, writing music, and there was another one, eating healthy. You'll notice, they're going to kill me. You'll notice that sleep is not included in this. This is unique to me. My best friend, his name is Valentin. He will get 8.5 hours of sleep every single day. If he goes to sleep late, he will cancel the meetings in the morning. He will always get it because he knows what makes sense for him. Now, like I said, I want to live to 200. I'm in the active process of changing this and prioritizing sleep. This is why now we are Whoop. Because my thesis is that if you don't sleep enough, you're just stealing time from Cliff later on in life, and you're stealing double the amount of time from future Cliff as you are gaining now. But these are my 5 pillars. So they come first. Now, they don't always come first. But now I get to make them come first. So audiobooks, super easy. I'm in the Uber here, I'm in the plane, whatever. I listen to double speed. I always have time. Time with loved ones. If I don't get to live around my family or around my friends, I'm calling my mom, I'm calling my dad, I'm texting with my sister, I'm doing whatever. Like, I make it happen. And I really go out of my way to get my friends to come live with me. I just will not miss a workout. So this is part of the sleep. I would rather lose sleep and still hit a workout. I count my macronutrients, so I know exactly, I'm eating 200 grams of protein per day, 60 grams of fat, 130 to 250 grams of carbs, depending on if I'm cutting or bulking. And so you might have your own priorities that are to you. Track them in a Google Sheet. So the other thing that I do is I have this thing I have with 3 of my friends called Rhinos. And every quarter we'll get together. And it's numbered 1 month, 3 month, 6 month, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year. And there's categories: spirituality, love, company, adventures, music, fitness. And I just write out 3 goals in each one of those categories. And every time I'm on a plane or every time where it's the end of a quarter, I update that thing. And I keep myself accountable and I track, did I hit it or did I not hit it? And things stay on my list until they get done. Like, I wanted to learn how to do a backflip when I was 6. And I learned how to do it when I was like 14. And then I was like, cool, I want to learn how to do a cork. I want to learn how to do a double backflip. I want to learn, every place I go, I find the open gym, I find the gymnastics place, I find the circus place, I find someone to coach me, and I train. I've been doing Speechify for 7 years. I just am not willing to give up on the things that I care about. So the number 1 key is track it. And then lastly, do a time audit. Pick a week, 2, Google Sheets, 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 5 p.m., whatever, all the way through, days of the week, 30-minute increments, and write what you did in that time. Audit it, put a color label for every type of activity: studying, working on the company, coding for the company, helping a friend move, whatever, and then sum it. Are you spending the right amount of time in each category as what you want? And if it's wrong, adjust. That's the answer. You got it. We had one more question here? No? If it's no? Yes.
My name is Maria, and as you are an international, as I mentioned before, and my question is more of, how did you pull through when you didn't have a green card? Because there's so many things I want to do, but there's so many legal restrictions.
Yes.
And sometimes it's just so annoying that you say, I'm here, and I'm willing to work, and I'm willing to take this project. But before you do it, you have to pass so many legislations. Right. So what were your hacks or maybe tips?
Yeah. Are you in university right now?
I'm graduating next year. Yes.
You're graduating undergrad or grad?
Undergrad.
Fantastic. You have the easiest thing in the world. Do you know what OPT is?
Yes, of course.
Fantastic. STEM or not STEM?
STEM.
Where's the problem?
The problem is sponsorship sometimes.
Do you need a sponsor for STEM? For OPT? I thought you could OPT by yourself.
Only the first year.
Great. So 1 year, you're good.
Okay.
By the first year, you'll have a line of people wanting to work with you. So here's what you do, and then I'm going to answer if you're not in your fortuitous situation. So 1, go online, search STEM OPT. Look how to apply for STEM OPT, and look at the YouTube videos of how to fill out the application. And tonight, fill out the application for STEM OPT. And then submit it. Like, it costs you nothing to submit. Maybe it's like $30, whatever. Submit the application for STEM OTP. So for the next year after college, you're good. And I think it can even start while you're still in school. Yeah. So like, you're properly good. Now, you need a sponsor, but like, you need someone to work for anyway for the STEM OPT to matter. So like, right, so get it, you're there, you're good. Boom, done. All right, let's say you had to have a company. Well, maybe it's hard to get it with Google or IBM or the other companies. Great, well, startups are easy. So just come to them and be like, hey, I want to work with you. By the way, Maria has the beautiful handwriting on the board. So be like, hey, I have amazing handwriting. I would love to help you, small education startup. I will handwrite a bunch of things, or whatever. Here's what I'll do. Start working for them. Like Simon. Simon didn't get paid for the first X number of months. And they'd be like, oh, by the way, I need this help with the STEM OPT. And you just own the process. Like, you read the law, you read the websites, you learn how to do it, and just tell him what he needs to do in order to sponsor you. Boom, that's how you solve it if you can't do it by yourself. Let's make it more difficult. Let's say you're not in college, and you somehow ended up in the United States. The first thing to do is apply for a B1, B2 visitor visa. get yourself here first. The second thing you can do is apply for a J1 visa, which is an internship visa that can last between 12 and 18 months. And you're eligible for it if you've done 2 years of university outside of the United States. And anyone can sponsor you for it. I think it's like $3,000. So just take it out of your future salary. Boom. J1 visa, you're good for a year to a year and a half. Next is you can either get an O1 visa, you can get an L1 visa, you can apply for an H1B. There's the green card lottery. So if you haven't applied to the green card lottery, apply. Why not? It's X number % chance. H1B, if you have a university degree, 30% chance of getting it. So there's all these hacks. Just get it, become an expert in it. You know, some people, they spend time becoming experts in like music or parkour. Some people like fashion. Some people become an expert in it, solve it. We agree, it is the most important thing in life. Guys, thank you so much for coming out. I really appreciate it. Please, if you can, check out Speechify in the App Store. If you want to send me a message or keep up, Cliff Weitzman at Instagram, CLIFFWEITZMAN. I spelled it correctly. If you're interested in more stuff like that, in the back they alluded to a podcast I did with Ali Abdal recently that's quite helpful. And thank you for being good listeners.